So the topic that we're doing this evening is actually, I think it's a very important topic to discuss because
we all do it wrong.
Yeah, well, everyone knows the idea of that, asking a non-Jewish person to do something, what's called in halacha, mir la'akum, asking a non-Jewish person, perhaps on Shabbos, to do certain things for us. But it's one of those things that people don't really necessarily really understand what the halachas are and what is permissible and what's not permissible. And so it kind of can become like a free-for-all. Anytime somebody has a problem, let's just go get somebody who's not Jewish. And so it's a widely misunderstood topic, and therefore I think it's a very worthwhile one to discuss. And so the first thing I wanted to start with is that what's the reason for rabbinic laws in general? Because according to Torah law, according to the Torah, you could ask a non-Jewish person to do anything for you, and there's no problem whatsoever, because the Torah doesn't prohibit non-Jews from doing malacha, doing the works that are prohibited to a Jewish person. And so theoretically, a person could ask from the Torah a Jew to do anything they want. So the rabbis made d'rabbanans. They made rabbinic laws. Right? You're not allowed to add or subtract laws from or to the Torah. But the Rabbanan are allowed to add laws as long as they make it clear that they're Rabbanans, that this is not, you can't add anything and say this is from the Torah. But if you say, look, this is something that we're adding, that's really what Beis Din is obligated to do, is they do one of two things. One is to create a fence, is to create something to prevent Isser. One of the reasons why the rabbis made rabbinic laws is to prevent Isser. Many times the rabbis were very brilliant when it came to understanding people's psychological way of thinking. And so they understood that if certain things were allowed, it would lead to other things that could become very problematic. The other reason that they made rabbinic laws on Shabbos is because of tishbos. There's a law that really we're supposed to rest. Besides having the negative commandment of not doing malacha on Shabbos, don't do this, don't do that, there's also a positive commandment, tishbos, to rest. And so exactly what that means is we're supposed to spend our time involved in ruchnius and spiritual pursuits. And so the rabbis made certain decrees also to prevent us from getting involved in things that we really shouldn't be getting into on Shabbos, to protect this idea of tishbos. And so the basic premise behind the law to not ask non-Jews to do malacha for us, is, even though that, like I said, from Hilchos Shabbos, it wouldn't really, from the Torah, it wouldn't be a problem. But the Rambam says, seemingly, this idea of to prevent an Isser. He says that if we were to allow, let's say you could just have a non-Jew follow you around, on Shabbos and do all the malacha for you, then it would lead to laxity. It would lead to, we wouldn't feel very stringent. We lose the feeling of stringency behind doing something. Okay, the non-Jew's not around, I'll do it. It could lead to a laxity in our. They understood psychologically that if you're really having all the malachas done for you, it will ultimately lead to a laxity in your appreciation of what malacha is. One of the things.
What Shabbos is.
What's that? What Shabbos? Well, that's the next thing I'll get to. That's Rashi. But one of the things that also we have to understand is sometimes we look at rabbinic law and we think, well, I wouldn't do that, but we don't understand what the importance is. What if there are a couple of Jews that will do it? Many times in society we have to keep laws because of everybody else, even though that we know that we wouldn't do that. But if you start, maybe I know, I'll only cross the street when it's safe. But if you start crossing the street all the time, other people, they won't. They'll do it and so this is the law, right? I can drive safely at 70 miles an hour. I'm a very adept driver. I can drive very safely, but I'm sorry, that's just like the way the law is, because there are people that can't, and we don't get to decide. Not if we let every person decide if they think they're safe. So what we're going to have is a disaster. And so what we have to understand is many times laws were made. You might think to yourself, well, that doesn't apply to me, but you could be wrong. It could apply to you, really. Is it worth a law just to save you from breaking Shabbos even once? So maybe it is. You have to understand what Shabbos really means. The other thing is that there's other people in the world. So the Rambam says that the reason for this prohibition is that might come to laxity. Rashi says it's because of mimso, chefso, and daber dover, which is pursuing, mimso, chefso is pursuing malachas, things that are prohibited on Shabbos, and daber dover is even speaking about things that are malacha on Shabbos. You're not even allowed to talk about future malacha on Shabbos. You're really not supposed to even speak about malacha that you plan to do in the coming week. I think the idea is, like, let's say that you want to meet somebody Motzei Shabbos, so you should say to them, I'll meet you or I'll contact you. You don't say I'll call you. Right? Something you don't speak on Shabbos about future malacha. And so that's Rashi says this is tishbos. And it's to rest properly. It's to protect that idea of, if you're pursuing malacha all of Shabbos, turn this on, do that, eat this. That's not tishbos. That's not that kind of resting from being creative on Shabbos. It ruins the mindset. And so that's the reason. Also, Rashi brings up another idea of shlichus, that the non-Jew, so to speak, becomes your messenger, and it's as if you're doing it. Now, if we already said the other things, why does Rashi need to bring in this concept of shlichus? So the reason why Rashi brings that in is that theoretically you could ask a non-Jewish person to do malacha for you before Shabbos. Right? You could say before Shabbos, this is the things that I'd like you to do. Please do this on Shabbos for me, this on Shabbos for me. And so shlichus prevents that, because if you ask him to do that, he does it for you. It's, so to speak, as if you're doing it. And so therefore all of these things become problematic on Shabbos. So the basic premise of the law is that a person cannot ask a non-Jew to perform malacha, even if the Jew will not benefit. You can't ask a non-Jew, you're leaving shul, please turn off all the lights off in shul. You're not allowed to ask a non-Jew to do malacha. That's the basic premise to begin with. One may not benefit from malacha that a non-Jew does, even if the non-Jew does it without being instructed to do it. And this is as a prevention to abuse of telling non-Jews to do things. So even if the non-Jew does it for you, but you didn't ask him for it to do it, you're not allowed to derive benefit from that. We'll talk a little more about that. Now I want to talk about a tricky distinction here. Sometimes it takes people a little bit to get this distinction. And that is, it's prohibited to ask a non-Jew to turn on the light for you.
I'm sorry, to what?
Turn on a light.
Turn on a light.
Yes. It's prohibited to ask a non-Jew to light up your stove. You're turn on the gas on your stove, light up the stove. It's prohibited to ask them to clean a shirt. Right? Now, we're going to talk about, let's say, turning off a light or turning off the stove. So we're going to see, you're not allowed to straight out ask them, but we're going to see that there are heterim to hint to them. There are times that you can either benefit from their doing that or hinting to them to do it. Now, what's the difference? Why is that different, turning on a light versus turning off a light, or turning on a stove versus turning on a stove? So the difference is that in general, the prohibition here is to benefit from something which they created through malacha. Okay? When a non-Jew turns on a light, the light is now on and you're benefiting from that light. If the stove is off and you need to warm some food, you're now benefiting from the flame that the non-Jew turned on. But if the non-Jew turns off a light, you're not benefiting from anything.
If you can't sleep,
Yeah.
the light off.
I was just waiting for you to say that, right? So, exactly. So, what are you benefiting from, though? Where's the object of benefit?
The lack
Darkness.
of light.
Right,
Bringing me the darkness.
Right, but he didn't, but that's the thing, but there's nothing created there you're benefiting from. That's why I call this a tricky distinction. There's nothing created. There's no doubt you're
With
benefiting.
derisa, you can't start a flame. But derisa, can you also not extinguish a flame?
So that could be a derabanan. Because if it's,
And that might be what we're...
yeah, but, well, that's similar
I think
thing.
derice, you can't start a fire, but is it derisa that you can't turn on an electric light bulb, or is that derabbanan because...
That's derisa, and it could be from
Connecting
two
the
different
circuits.
things. It could be even from two different malachas.
Oh.
But the thing is like this. What I'm trying to say is like this: is it's a little bit of a tricky distinction. Listen, like let's say you see that more when he turns off the flame. When the non-Jew turns off, like it's hot in the house, maybe summertime. So, but you're benefiting from a lack of something. There's nothing that you're not deriving benefit from this created thing here, right? And so there's a distinction between when the person does something which creates something for you that you're now benefiting from, and when the person does something, sure there's a benefit. I mean, there's a reason why that you wanted it, but you're not benefiting from something. There's nothing created that he created that you're benefiting from. Does everyone cop that distinction now? Okay, I know at first it sounds like, yeah, but I'm benefiting from the darkness or and you are, but that's not something. That's a lack. He didn't create something. It's a lack of something, and there's going to be a distinction there. Now, also, let's say that there's a light. There's a light on in the room, but it's dim. Right? But you can function in the room. Right? So we're going to see that that's different also because that's adding an additional benefit. He's not making something that you couldn't have done before, right? I could have already read here. It wouldn't have been as pleasant, but I could have read here, learned Torah, whatever it might be. So if he's adding light, if it's a benefit, but it's something that you could already have done first, so then in such a case, we'll see you're allowed to hint to the person that they should, let's say, turn the light on. So, when is it permissible to benefit or to ask it, what we're going to say, most of the time it's to hint. There are situations you're allowed to ask, we'll talk about later. You can actually ask a non-Jew to do malacha, but we'll talk about that later. When is it permissible? So if a malacha done by a non-Jew is for his or herself, let's say a non-Jewish person turns on a light to read. So you're allowed to derive benefit from that. Right? You can sit and read, it's no problem. If they turn it on for you, you're not allowed to. Even if that you didn't ask them. And so it must be genuine. Right? If it's really like, yeah, I did this because I wanted it, with a wink, you can't do that. It has to be that genuinely the non-Jewish person did this for themselves, and that you're just benefiting from it as well. Now, I'll tell you what's a little bit of a problem here that goes on here sometimes in the shul that I think is a problem personally, which is, like, what happens if coming into Shabbos nobody lit up the urn? Right. Now let's say that somebody who's not Jewish plugs the urn in for you in the shul on Shabbos.
Benefiting from the creation.
Exactly. You're not allowed to use it.
Maybe with Tzarech Rabin?
You can ask. I don't think that would be a good enough.
So,
I don't think people can live without.
Even if they did...
I mean, it's the mitzvah thing, like the shul's lights go out. That's still a machlokas. What's that?
what about, I have a question. So when we were in a hotel for a thing and no real keys anymore. So we told them before Shabbos, we need to get back into our room. So if we come up here and say we can't get into our room, please understand why we're saying it.
Right.
But they're benefiting us.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a deficit. So what do you do?
Yeah. I'm not sure about that. I'm afraid to answer it. I think that I've heard before that it's mutter. And the reason I think it might be okay is, I'm not sure, but you're not really benefiting directly from what they're doing. You want to get in your room.
Well, the door. That's the only way to open the door.
Right. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying it's this. I'm not saying it's the same exactly. But the halacha is like this, and I'm not saying that's the exact same thing. But psik reisha, right? Let's say psik reisha works like this. I don't want to get into the whole thing. It's a big thing in Shabbos. But let's say your refrigerator door is closed and you left the light. You left the light on your refrigerator. Okay? You're allowed to ask a non-Jew to open up your refrigerator. Why? Because you don't really want the light. You're not asking to turn on a light. You want the door open. The light goes on automatically. right? But you're not asking him, could you please turn the light on for me? You're asking, could you open the refrigerator door? So you're allowed to ask a non-Jew to do what's called a psik reisha. You're not asking them, you're not interested in the malacha outcome of what he's doing. You're interested in getting into the refrigerator. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Can you ask him to take out the light bulb so you can open it later on?
I don't think so.
You should be able to hint to that. It's like turning.
Yeah,
on the light.
maybe you could hint to such a thing. We're going to talk about how you hint.
But what about closing it after it's been opened?
So I think I don't see why it's different for him to do that too.
We
Because
can't close it.
what's that?
But we couldn't close it.
No, but I think you could ask him because again, you're not interested in shutting the light off. You're interested in the refrigerator being closed so it keeps your food cold. But my point is that I don't know the halachas of that exactly, those door things. I know that I've seen this at events where they say that you can get the security person or whatever. But I think the reason might be is because you're not really asking the person. You're saying, I really need that electrical connection that you make with that card. I want to get my room, right? And so I think that might be why it's not the same thing. That if you just say, "Listen, I'm locked out of my room. Is there anything new that I'm locked out?" Yeah.
Is there an age at which you could ask, like a toddler, or
That's
not
a
ask,
separate
but
thing. That's even talking about a Jewish kid. I think you're talking. It's a separate halacha. I don't want to get into that. I'm talking right now about talking to things you ask non-Jewish people to do.
Okay.
Okay, but so the thing is that it must be genuine, right? And I think here, I don't know, if a person plugs in the urn on, it seems to me that that's a problem. I mean, you can ask Rav the Shul, whatever, but it seems to me, I don't know why it's not a problem. What happens now when a non-Jew acts for a Jew? There might even be no request. A non-Jew acts on his own. So we just said if he's doing it for himself, it's okay. If he does it for you, it's a problem. Now, when it comes to doing things like we talked about where there's no direct benefit, like turning the lights off, etc., that's when you're allowed to hint. Okay, so in such a case, you're allowed to hint. In a minute, we're going to discuss how you're allowed to hint, right? Because you can't just do whatever you want. We'll discuss it in a minute. Another thing that is brought up is, can you tell a non-Jew to tell another non-Jew to do a malacha? That might sound kind of silly, but let me give you a very practical example of that. Let's say that it's very important that a package gets sent on Shabbos. Can you ask a non-Jew to bring it to UPS? Now the UPS guy hopefully isn't Jewish, right? And the guy bringing the package, so it's a non-Jew asking another non-Jew to do something on Shabbos. And so the way it comes out there is, of course, is that it's a machlokes, that there's a dispute as to whether or not that is permissible. And so it's probably best not to do that unless that there's a really urgent need. Maybe in a case of a very urgent need, a person could rely on that, but otherwise not. And as I said before, is a secretion, a case of one that you're not asking the non-Jewish person to open up a refrigerator, right? Things like that. I'm not. Yeah, those kinds of things where you're asking them to do something that's not a. You don't want the malacha. You want the door open, something like that. If a non-Jew, let's say, turns your headlights off in your car, he sees your lights are on, that's no problem. He's turning them off. Right? If you don't ask him, you can hint to him. Right? Let's say you have a child sleeping in a room, a bedroom, or is going to sleep, or your own bedroom. So you're allowed to hint to a non-Jew to take care of that. What is hinting? What's the kind of hinting that you're allowed to do, and what kind of hinting are you not allowed to do? So this is the kind that's okay. You can say to the non-Jew, the light is on in the bathroom and I can't turn it off. It's a shame the electricity is being wasted, isn't it?
Sorry, if you repeat that?
It's a shame the electricity is being wasted, isn't it? I wish I could open this letter today. Now what happens, has this ever happened to you? if the person says to you,
But isn't
would
that a
you,
positive thing, opening a letter?
what's that?
That's a positive thing, is opening a letter.
So you want what's inside, not the outside. Same as the
Or
door.
what letter could you
I
open
think
on
you're not
Shabbos
asking
anyway?
him to.
Yeah.
What's that?
What letter could you open on Shabbos anyway?
I don't, you really can't open the mail.
Well,
themselves.
say hypothetically, because I just got right before Shabbos, thank goodness it came for it. When we were in the hotel 2 weeks ago, I left a book I was in the middle of.
And they sent it to you right
They mailed it to me. It arrived 10 minutes before Shabbos. I opened it. It was right in the middle of the book. It was in the middle of the page. But if we had a shiksa in the house at the time, could I have said, you know, if only
I think you could say, because you don't really want,
not like-
again, as I think it's because you don't really want the malacha done. You can't open mail.
No, I just want to read the book.
Right, so I think you could say, like, I wish that this was open and I can tear it open.
You know, funny enough, I actually learned how to do it at your house like
Yes, what's
17
that?
years ago. Because the radio was
Oh, yeah.
And I remember going across the
Yeah,
street,
we've
like,
had
I
several
wonder
times.
if,
Right.
I wonder if, or something like that.
Right. So you can say, like, you know, the radio's on our house is very bothersome.
And they'll say.
What's-
Still have radio.
What happens if they say, what happens if they go, well, do you want me to open the letter? So you should say, I'd certainly appreciate it if the letter was open. You can't say yes. Would you like me to open it?
It's good to dial in your staff properly before they have their first Shabbos at your house.
Well, a lot of times, you know, when you have somebody living next door, they get to know the score, kind of. They know as soon as you knock on the door. I'm always extremely appreciative of these people because it must, like, get up, get out of their house, put on their shoes, whatever. And they seem many times to not to be bothered by it. But so that's what you're allowed to do. What are you not allowed to do? For one thing, you can't indicate the non-Jew's role. Like, if someone would just hit that switch, you know, that would be great. Or push that off button, right?
You can't say that.
No, you shouldn't.
Sure
say
is bright in here.
Yeah, that's what you can do. Yeah, it's bright here.
And what if they say, where's the switch or where's the?
It's on the wall somewhere, or no, you can't.
I would, you know, I don't know.
Switches live on
I don't know
walls.
why you couldn't say there's a switch over there. I don't know, but you can't indicate to them, you know.
What exact action?
Yeah, you're expecting them to take, and non-verbal gestures are the same thing. You know, like, you know, trying to tell them what to do non-verbally is the same thing. Wave your hand,
Total
pointing.
side note, is it necessary to grunt after you've washed before cutting bread?
That's a Torah obligation, actually. Grunting, actually. Yeah, no. You're really supposed to be quiet. That's the real
Right,
thing.
so, but-
and also, I'm not sure "new" is not a word.
Right.
It's a Scrabble word.
But
Also, sign language is considered talking, so you're not supposed to like gesture.
you really shouldn't make any hefsek. I mean, really, the person should. I mean, yeah, there's people like to sing, maybe humming without words is not a problem. But really, the best is to not make a hefsek, if possible. Right? You know, if you need something, you're certainly allowed to say it. If you need the salt or you need a knife or something like that.
You just say get the salt, you don't
Yeah.
have to rewash.
You no. There's no such thing as rewashing. That's even if you talk, you don't rewash. But so or you can say it's also like you can't say like to the guy like, why didn't you shut the lights off after the meal last week? Implying that you should do it now.
You
Right.
can't say that.
No, you're not allowed to do that. Right? The implication is you're saying basically I want you to shut the lights off now.
So, quick question. So what if you have someone helping you with this? You have a big group at home, you have someone helping you. So I was always taught you couldn't say wash the dishes. You couldn't say wash dishes in hot soapy water.
Right.
You could, when they came over and you set them up in your house, you would say, here's where everything is.
Right.
I'd like for it to be cleaned up when
Right.
you're done. And
Right.
however they choose to wash the dishes,
Right.
they wash the dishes.
Right.
If they want to turn the hot water on
Right.
to accomplish that task,
If
they
they
Right.
ask where a sponge
Right.
is, we can't use a sponge on Shabbos,
Right.
but
They can.
they can.
The reason, the reason is because that they're doing it for themselves.
They're not washing the
Right.
dishes for themselves.
You're allowed, no,
They're
right.
doing it or they're
Washing
doing it
dishes
themselves.
though is not malacha. You're allowed to
Not
wash
water.
dishes on Shabbos. No.
Right.
A Jewish person, you can wash dishes in cold water, right? Right, it works, it's not as good. But so what I'm saying is, they're using the hot water for their own benefit, right? So they're allowed to use a sponge and you're not telling them to do that. They're doing that for them. They could do it in cold water with their hand, and it's a lot harder. Soap in their hand, cold water. So they're allowed to use soap and because what you're asking them to do is to wash the dishes. You're not asking them to do malacha. You're not saying please turn on the hot water. Please squeeze water out of a sponge. Right? You're asking them, could you do my dishes? So they're allowed to do that. They shouldn't be using things like the garbage disposal though. You're allowed to ask a non-Jew to tidy up. They shouldn't be vacuuming on Shabbos. But
We've got some guy here, vacuuming every Shabbos.
ask somebody else, but I don't know.
What if your robot vacuum comes on Shabbos?
Now that's a thing I have not, I have
Automatic.
not heard that asked, and I don't know what to say about that. You know, but
Well,
robots, there's going to be, not too long in the future, Hilchos robots. There's going to be someone's going to put on a safer on all the things that I'm not kidding.
No, it has to be.
It will happen.
Because the robots are not
There's going to be
really cut out
robots,
when you
there's
tell
going
them.
to be robots doing a lot more stuff.
But only for about 5 years. Then
They'll be obsolete.
no, then we'll be obsolete.
Oh.
Because Skynet will take over.
Artificial intelligence. So that's the point that you're making. It's what happens when you have people working in your house like that. It's they're doing things. That's not asking them to do malacha. That's the difference. What we were talking up until now is asking people to do malacha. That's asking people not. You're not asking. You're asking. Could you please wash my dishes? Could you tidy up the house? If they do it through malacha, so that's their business, right? Now, what is it mutter to directly ask a non-Jew to do malacha? So one case is illness. If you have a person that is a chola she'ein bo sakana, which means you can't ask a non-Jew because you have a headache to go buy you aspirin. But if you are sick to the point that you'd prefer to be in bed, if a person has, you know, a terrible cold or flu symptoms, and they prefer to be in bed early, they're bedridden. So you're allowed to ask a non-Jewish person to do malacha. You can ask them to raise up a bed or go out and buy medicine, fill a prescription. You can ask them to turn up the heat, put on the air conditioning, right? If that person, it's a very, very cold day out, so it says in halacha that everybody is a chola, everybody is sick when it comes to cold. So if it's a very cold day, you're always allowed to ask a non-Jew to turn the heat up, whether if you're sick or not. Any healthy person,
Ask them straight.
you can ask them straight, could you please turn the heat up?
And not the AC if you're just hot.
Right. And that's a very difficult thing for me. But usually cold is not as big of an issue, but if they didn't, it's just very uncomfortable. It's not, the rabbis say that by very, very cold weather, people are sick. It's liable to make people sick. So you're considered as if like you're sick with respect to cold, and so it's permissible now, with a woman that's actually giving birth, I believe she's considered to be in sakana, in danger. And then all bets are off anyway. You're allowed to do anything for such a person. A Jew could do it.
Is it best for you to drive them to the hospital, or is it best to call taxi and have a taxi take?
So if you can set it up beforehand, it's preferable that you set it up beforehand.
It's hard to set up before.
Okay, so if you have, I've driven my wife. If you have to do it, you have to do it.
I
That's,
don't think you have to worry about that anymore.
yeah.
Sure.
You know, your name is Sarah. You never know.
Yeah, that's right.
99.
So, never know, right? Now, the flyer for this
Wait, may I
class.
just ask one
Yeah.
more question? So when I forget to close the battery door on my hearing aids, I can ask directly a non-Jew. I have to tell them how to do it.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I don't know the laws of hearing aids.
What?
I just don't know how that works. Like, it's something that a
You
person
just close
always
the door and
needs.
it completes like a circuit.
Yeah, so I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. I mean, if you ask me, it sounds like it's a problem. But I don't want, I don't know.
To ask directly.
Yeah.
Well, how is that
Or
different than asking someone to
indirectly.
turn on the air?
It could be it's okay because, right, no, it could be it's the same as like the refrigerator
What
because
if
you're
what
not,
if you have a pacemaker that needs its battery
oh no,
charged?
that you do that.
Is a pacemaker, is a
That's
hearing
the
aid?
It's not
comment, yes,
life or
that's
death.
See, but a hearing aid is not, the danger of her not being able to hear,
It
you know,
could be, I don't know.
traffic,
That could be
which
right,
is
I
crossing
don't
the
know.
street.
Could be stay home. I don't know. The thing is also, it could be that it's like the refrigerator, kind of like you're not really, you don't, I don't know. Yeah, I don't want to answer that because I don't know the answer. You should check on that. The very cute picture on the flyer for this class showed eyeballs in a completely dark room. So you're not allowed to hint to a non-Jew to put lights on in a completely dark room, even to do your Shabbos meal, even for a Shavuot brachos. It can be a very uncomfortable situation. Yeah.
So I have in my rooms these little 7-watt bulbs that
Yeah.
I plug in so no room's completely dark.
Right.
And I think my mother told me to put those in case my lights ever go off and I need someone
Yeah.
to turn them on.
Yeah. I mean, if you
No,
have the
they're
room
not.
somewhat lit.
What if you?
Yeah. But you can have like the power go off. But anyway, the halacha is that if the room is completely dark, so that the person is providing you the ability by turning the lights on, you're not allowed to hint to them or ask them to turn it on, even for Shavuot brachos. For certain public needs, that's what you are alluding to. By the way, that's a machlokus. But there are poskim that say for the needs of the tzibur, like let's say the shul lights are off and you can't see. I actually heard of a case one time when everybody was standing about to daven Ne'ilah and the lights went off. And they couldn't see their sitters. Okay. So some would argue maybe that that's kuk, not nefashos, Ne'ilah. It's life, not davening for your life. But the thing in there is that there are those that say that in such a situation that you can turn the lights on for the tzibur. Also, there are those posting.
Yourself or ask a...
No, you can get a non-Jew. You can get hint to a non-Jew to turn the lights on. It's really dark in here. It's hard to daven. The other thing is
But can't you
that
ask him, with Tzibur, can't you just ask him straight out?
I don't think so. I'm not sure, but I don't think so. I'm not 100% sure. I think you have to hint to him still. To repair the eruv. So there's some poskim say that to save the Jewish people, the rabbin, from committing an avera by carrying without an eruv, you're allowed to ask a non-Jewish person to fix the eruv, to hint her to.
Because you couldn't get the news out potentially.
Yeah, I mean, there's people are all over the place. There's no way at this point to prevent
You
people.
can't call them or text them.
Right. Yeah.
Can you just clarify, go back for a minute, what the difference is? Because if it's so hot, like say I can't breathe, or I'm just so uncomfortable, I can't ask someone to turn it on, but I can ask someone to turn the heat on.
Yeah. Because heat is a danger. Air conditioning is
Or a fan.
generally something that's for comfort. It's not a necessity. Look, if you ask me, it's a necessity.
Someone that has asthma.
Yeah, so that's I can't
Okay,
answer.
so
That's a health issue again, where you get to where maybe you could, because it's a health issue. If you actually have trouble breathing, so that goes back to that now being a health issue, and then you would be able to just ask the person to turn it, if that really makes it so you can
Or you
breathe.
can do it on your own.
If it's really sakana, that right. I mean, if you're in life, if this is something that's dangerous to life, you just do it. The halacha, we always have to remember this. Safek nefashos is the chumrah. If a person is in doubt as to whether something is life-threatening, then you just do it, right? You don't run and ask a question, right? It's life comes first. The Gemara talks about why that is. It's not that Shabbos isn't very important. It is very important, but life comes first, and so if it's a doubt, then you do it.
Well,
And then, yeah.
So how about in the case where you're, a candle lights something on fire in your house?
Right.
I've been told you can't put a fire out.
Okay, that's not for this discussion, but if there's life, that's talking about if no life is in danger. If theoretically you could just leave and your house is not next to another house that's going to burn down, and you can just leave and the house would just burn down, that would be the halacha. But if it's life-threatening, then it's not. So this is something that
I thought you were asking, can you ask a goy to put out the fire?
if it's life-threatening,
No, if it's not like
right. Well, then there's things that you can do. There are things that you can.
Can you hint? Our house is on fire.
It does talk about it. He who puts out the fire will not lose. Let's say taking stuff to the dry cleaners, Erev Shabbos. Are you allowed to take stuff to the dry cleaners? Or can you take your car to the auto mechanic late Friday afternoon? You hear the question?
Yeah, because he's not Jewish necessarily.
Okay.
Assume he's not Jewish.
Okay, so the halacha works like this. Let's say you're taking it there late afternoon. So you can't tell him to do it on Shabbos, and you can't pick it up Motzei Shabbos. That you have to provide time that he could have done it not on Shabbos. If he does it on Shabbos, that's his business now. You're back to the sponge. He did that for his own benefit.
But I can pick this up on Monday.
Yeah, that's fine. Right? If you take stuff, first of all, if you take stuff to dry cleaners the day before Shabbos, so then it's fine. And you can even pick it up after Shabbos. Right? As long as you provided that he could have done it
So
Not
you
on
want it
Shabbos.
Tuesday, sure.
Right, you're not asking him that. If you come right before Shabbos and say, I'm coming right after Shabbos, you're essentially asking him to do it on Shabbos. You're not allowed to do that. But if you say you leave time beforehand, same with the auto mechanic, you give it time, he could fix the car. He does it on Shabbos, that's his business. Yeah.
But if he's closed on Sunday, you pick it up on Monday.
So then I'm saying you have to leave time.
What if you?
But I still think that's not true, even if he's closed on Sunday, that could be. Because he could come into work, that's his business. He's choosing to take time off.
What if you bring it on Thursday? They call you at 4 o'clock on Friday saying, man, we just got your car, we can fix it, we'll have it done Saturday night and leave the keys in it for you to pick it up. You pay us on Monday. Now he had it all that time, he could have done the work.
I think that's a problem.
But he's telling you that he didn't.
Right.
do it.
I think that might be a problem. It's better he doesn't tell you these things. But I think that sounds to me problematic, that because you're basically telling him at that point, yeah, go ahead, do it on Shabbos. I was going to talk about another case you brought up, the maids, which we discussed, which is you can ask maids to fold laundry. You should not have them wash laundry on Shabbos. They can wash the dishes and even use a sponge and hot water, tidy up, clean up. They can mop the floor if they want to mop the floor with a mop and water. They're allowed to do that. Right? You just said clean the floor. I mean, they could do it. You know, if they want to make it easier for themselves, that's their business. There's a lot of things now that are just complicated, and I'm not going to get into that tonight because they're too complicated. And that's what happens when you have a business which is co-owned by like a Jew and a non-Jew. What happens when you have non-Jewish people working on your property on Shabbos? Like, let's say you're a Jewish-owned property and it's public, and like for example, you can't let non-Jews mow your lawn on Shabbos, even though that they're doing it on their own time. You said, look, you can mow my lawn whenever you want. They come over on Shabbos, you have to say, go home.
What if you're a chill and they do it in the morning, you didn't even realize they were coming? That's
What are you asking me?
No, I'm saying, if...
You can't look at the grass or walk by it for like 2 weeks.
What I'm trying to say is it's too late. There's nothing you can do about something that happened already.
Right, so it's not like you're doing a malacha.
You should request from them.
So you tell them not to come on
Saturday, right?
Just saying,
Yeah, you come home and the guy's doing it, or he just finished, but what I'm saying is that there are problems even if you own property, having people like, let's say you have an apartment, everyone knows it's your place, and people are working on it on Shabbos. So that can be a problem of more Zion. There's complicated issues with all these things that need to be asked if that you're going to do this. I also have seen before, for example, specifically having the paper delivered on Shabbos could be a problem.
Or the mail, is that different than
the mail?
What if the paper just comes?
Yeah, like the
7 days
mail
a
just
week?
comes.
It could be a question. I don't know. Like, do you have to order a special Shabbos edition? There's this. I saw there's discussion on that.
There's
You
no-
can order the Saturday,
You're-
Sunday only.
How's it
What's
different
that?
than the mail?
Yeah, it's the same thing.
The mail, for one thing, I mean, you can't prevent. You don't order that. You don't call up and say, "I'd like to have this delivered. Please deliver this." And the mail comes whether you
Right,
like
but
it or
you order
not.
the Wall Street Journal, it's coming 6
Right.
days a week, not
Right.
Sunday.
Right.
It's coming Monday to
So
Sunday.
I'm just saying, I've seen such a thing brought up as to talking about having something specifically delivered. Again, let's say 24-hour delivery. Like, let's say that you order something, overnight something. So, is that mutter or not?
They don't just deliver on Saturday, do they?
I don't know.
People deliver on Saturday and
I
Sunday.
don't
So
know.
yeah, they deliver on Sunday.
But so
Amazon-
all these things, partnerships with non-Jews, businesses, having, I know that there are, I think, some Jewish businesses that even take their website down over
E&H does.
Shabbos.
I know.
But
But there are
so-
some businesses that you can't shut down. If
Right.
you own apartment complexes,
right, and that, right.
you have to have staff,
Right.
they have to take
Right,
calls. It's-
right. So those things are things that you probably should just, if you have that, you should just talk with the Rav and make sure that it's being done properly and that it's not a problem. But so just to sum up, so we were discussing that the general idea behind these laws again is that either that a person becomes lax. The Rambam says that if we do this wrong, we'll become lax with halacha, or that tishbos. It breeds the wrong kind of behavior, the wrong kind of resting on Shabbos. And so we can't ask a non-Jew. The main thing, I think, the most important thing to keep in mind here generally is you can't ask a non-Jew to do something that will create something for you. You can hint to a non-Jew to do things that don't create something. And the other thing is how that you hint. We can hint by saying, it's really bright in here. You can't give them any kind of instruction as to what you want done.
What are you allowed to say to them after they do the malacha? After they've hinted, are you allowed to say thank you?
I don't see any reason why you couldn't say that. Thank you.
I've heard that you're not supposed to
Have you?
thank them.
I haven't seen that anywhere. I don't know.
Maybe it's rather that you relief.
You don't know. I don't know why. I don't know exactly.
So what about, I know you didn't want to talk about like
It seems a little rude.
Yeah, it
The
does.
guy gets his shoes on and comes.
you don't have to go to Jewish home, but let's say I have,
I don't know about you. I always feel uncomfortable. Like I always feel like I should give them something. Like I feel like, it's just bye. Good riddance. Yeah.
but let's say like I have Zay, so he's
Yeah.
not Jewish, but I can't hint, he doesn't understand, I can't hint to him or tell him, but if I hold him up to the light switch, he could play with it and we would hook it
I'm
up.
not gonna, I don't know about that. I don't know. I can't answer that. I don't know.
Okay.
Okay. So that's it.
Is there
They're coming. Yeah.
if you get a package sent from like a UPS
Yeah.
on a Shabbos, and you know what's in that package is really expensive,
Yeah.
you're not supposed to bring in mail or packages. Is it okay to ask a
Can
non-Jew
you kick
to
it in?
bring that package in?
I always kick things.
Yeah, I kick it in.
What, I
So
mean,
you
if
can be right in
it's,
front of the door and you can't get in.
but what if it's
without
fragile?
anyway.
You don't want to be
That's
kicking something that's fragile. I
You
mean.
lift it
Gently
very
kick it.
gently with your foot. Yeah.
Okay.
Your
I mean,
elbow.
that's what I usually do is gently kick it.
The turkey.
The chicken, yeah, the frozen chicken. Yeah, so, okay, anyway, thank you very much for coming. I hope that you learned something from it.
Thank you.
But you mentioned